I do know that, they point out that oftentimes it's those who were not able to get into the universities or polytechnics that go to the colleges of education. So if we're beginning to identify some of where our challenges lie, where do you think we begin to address them from?
The solution. Yeah, so part of the solution, again, is your recruitment, your remuneration. Because it said if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. So if you really begin to remunerate the teachers right, you would get good people coming to the teaching profession. In the first place, I think also we also need to think about where did we lose the dignity of the teaching profession. Teachers used to be the bedrock of societies.
Let me give you an idea where we lost it. I mean, cut-off marks into the education departments amongst the lowest.
Less than even 200 over 400. You probably see situations cut off like 150, 160 to go into education, meanwhile to go into medicine, 240, 250, 280 for law, and things like that.
But some people will also tell you that teachers have always not been well paid. I mean, what did he say in teacher's reward is in heaven? Where did it ever come out from?
Yeah, but those are the things then we need to correct. Those are the things we need to correct, because if you don't have the right teachers with the right teaching methods, then we cannot get the kind of result that we want to get. It said that if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, is the definition of insanity. And I think with the education sector, we need to, because look at it, we can't even sustain what we started. Maybe we didn't even know what we started when we moved from 18 to 38, 3 years ago. And now it's beginning to decline again. So it tells us we can't even, so probably it's either we knew what went wrong and we started to correct it, and now we may not be able, we have not been able to sustain it.
Or do you think that the quality of students also have something? Because we're seeing a larger number enroll, and of course, you most likely will see more students pass, and you also see a lot of students too fail. So would you also attribute this to the quality of students? Would you say that, okay, things are beginning to improve, more students are in school, possibly we don't have the capacity to be able to take care of all of the students?
Yeah, that's part of it. Capacity is definitely part of it. You've gotten population number one for us, Nigeria keeps exploding. So obviously you have more numbers, and then your infrastructure, like you also know, is not growing in Nigeria. Our infrastructure has not grown in commensurate response to our population. So yes, definitely, capacity is a critical part of it. But at the same time, yes, also for the students themselves, like I said, yes, apart from the fact that you look at a different yearning for a type of learning, I think we have not done a lot as the society in front of the younger ones to propel them to want to study. You see in situations where everybody thinks I don't need school, I can go into music and I can make money, I can go into Nollywood, I can make money and things like that. So we have had this societal decline in the value of education. That needs to come up. And that's why I blame a lot of the parents. You see, when you look at the parents, for example, I started reading newspapers from age 7. I mean, my dad buys papers and he puts on the table, and it's just this unwritten rule that you pick the papers you read, and sometime in the evening at the table it's asked you, what did you read? You didn't need to make sense of it, but oh, what did you read? And then that becomes a reason to correct you on certain things.
Even if it's a cartoon you looked at.
Exactly. Well, I mean, you've had things like you speak some grammar. My dad used to do it a lot when we sit around the table and he's listening to news, and maybe the broadcaster said something. He says, what should be, what's that? Is that right? We're like, okay, what should be the correct thing? We'll attempt.
Looks like they all did it at that time, so they had that pattern.
Exactly. You attempt and he will then correct you. I remember there was a day he was at home and we said, we're trying to get his driver. So, John, Daddy is calling you. He said, no. What kind of English is that? It's John, Daddy wants you. So that attention from parents, where is it now?
The question will be, you as a parent, do you have that kind of do you have that time as they'll say, there's some who say that, I mean, parents of old had more time for their children. I mean, the demands of society, of work and putting food on the table were not so much as they are now. That's what they'll say. So do you have that time?
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, we know that time is really more precious and is very, very scarce now. But we've got to make out that time. It is something that we all have got. I mean, I encourage mine to always learn new words. You know, learning new words doesn't have to come from a textbook. Even your novels, learn new words. For example, when they bring their results home, I'm not just moved by averages and the position you came out in class. Maybe you are 10 out of 20 or 10 out of 40. That's not what matters to me. It's about what are your subject scores and your subject averages. Now, when you climb into secondary, senior secondary, I always let them understand that, listen, maths, English, in fact, they know that with me, maths and English, and then other subjects. And then primarily, when you climb into senior secondary, it's about maths and English, and then what are your proficiencies? I've got one now who's just finished, you know, from St. Greg's, and talking about, okay, going to university, I think, but it's been an issue of a subject of discussion the past 3 years to try and understand where are your strengths, what do you want to, matching what you want to go study with your strengths.
You know, I'm even wondering because I imagine that after that conference, including everybody who attended who wants to see things change, we'll look at the sector, you know, more detailed than maybe anybody else will. For instance, this result from WAEC since 2012, 2013, 2014. Now, you talked about the fact that you've got more people who are taking that exam. So the percentage we see in 2012, seeing it in 2014, that 38.81 and 31.28. With this 31.28, you actually will have perhaps more people who have sat for that exam. So can this be taken as even a real measure of test, because there's been more investment in the education sector at this level since 2012 to 2014. How do we ensure that, okay, is there any improvement or not for those who are assessing to see where are we beginning to do something? Is what we're doing making any impact? How do we see that?
Well, one first thing we must put up is when you make an investment in education, it takes a longer incubation period for you to even begin to see the result. Certain short-term emergency things you can do, which, for example, in Lagos State, they have also done. I mean, these results have just been released, so I'm sure in the next few months, Lagos will come out with their own breakdown analysis as well, because it was an analysis of this some years ago, at least in 2007, when this current administration came in with Fashola, that they did this analysis and realized where they were in the lower teens as well, just like it was for the national, and then put in certain emergency responses, part of which, for example, was getting them familiar to shading optical sheets, because a lot of the students didn't really see optical sheets or know how to shade optical sheets until WAEC. So now in Lagos schools, for example, it's something you start to practice from your SS2, SS3, even for your terminal exam. So you have some emergency responses that you can put in that can give you some kind of immediate positive results. But most of the other interventions would give you've got to take about 3, 4, 5 years to measure. However, what we are seeing in this declining statistics is even by the time you actually tear it really apart and you begin to do it in measures pari passu with investment, you would have a worse an analysis actually, because of the fact that the numbers have also increased in terms of population doing the exam. But I think one of the take-homes that we must use this discussion this morning to address is the fact that we've got to go back to taking our senior secondary education very seriously. I think, like we said, UBEC from primary school to junior secondary, very important as well. But when you come in from SS1 it's a different ballgame. It's really about WAEC from your SS1. It can't be just about school exams. And because when I take a cue back from when we were in Federal Government College Warri many years ago, I think a lot of unity schools also did it. Once you crossed into senior secondary, it really wasn't about your average score or your cumulative average. It wasn't. It was really about the aggregates of your mathematics and English plus 4 other subjects from your first term in SS1 to your last term in SS3 when you then do your WAEC. So what it means then is your best aggregate could be aggregate 6, which means you had an A1 in math and English and A1 in 4 of your other many subjects, meaning that you could also have A1s in all other subjects and get a P8, for example, in math and English, and you are getting aggregate 20. Meaning also that you could not pass into SS2 or SS2 into SS3 if you did not have your credits in math and English. So these are things that we've got, because once you begin to train a young child, a young adult, because when you go into SS, you're already 15 and above. Once you begin to train a teenager like that, from his first year in SS, he understands the importance of maths, he understands the importance of English. Because again, what we need to clarify is that these statistics is really, because the way you know passing grades is credits in maths and English plus 3 other subjects, which gives you your 5 credits. Because any other credit you have, once you don't have your maths and English, you can't progress. So I think that is very important, because what I'm finding is I was shocked asking my own son, telling me in senior secondary they still have 13 subjects. That's weird.
All right, wish we could go on all day. Interesting comments, even on Twitter as well, but it clearly shows that we all need to do something, maybe differently from what we've been doing previously, especially at that level, that foundational stage. Afolabi Imokhuede, thank you very much indeed for coming on this morning.
Thank you. Appreciate
all right.